No results. All I heard all day is I was helping people in, and it's where did all these names come from? I don't know who half these people are.
No, I had Channel 9 news on just
Yeah.
before I left. It's too early to call anything. They're
Right.
projecting Romney with the landslide.
The landslide.
But it's a real close between second and third, between Ron
35%
and...
for him was a failure, so.
Well, enough of politics. 6:30, I'm gonna call the meeting of the planning board to order.
Okay.
First thing we have is the December 13th meeting minutes, and I was ill, and I apologize for that, but...
I'll make a motion. We bring the minutes of December 13th to the floor for discussion and approval.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll bring the minutes to the meeting to the floor. Has everybody had an opportunity to read through them?
Mhm.
Any discussion, changes, comments?
Complete?
All right, I'll have your motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of December 13th, 2011.
Second that motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention, I abstain, Gus.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Next on the agenda is correspondence and other business. And it looks like we have a full one as usual. I'm gonna go through these quickly. Subdivision planning meeting for the town of Belmont, Gunstock Brook construction, and a planned subdivision meeting for public hearing for the subdivision approval to subdivide one lot into two on Durrell Mountain Road. Everybody's invited to attend. This is January 23rd, so if anybody's interested, you can get that information from Gus. Next is Department of Environmental Sciences, and it's the submission of alteration of terrain permit has been issued for MB Tractor.
Right.
So that's good. I don't know when they plan to break ground, but that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who weren't on the board at the time, we got to be close personal friends with the attorney for MB Tractor because we met so many times and there were so many changes that had to be done. So
Right.
I think they're going to be
They haven't bought the land yet, though. They haven't bought the land yet.
They haven't.
But they're moving forward.
They are, yeah.
Okay. The next is from Cleveland Waters and Bass, and it's concerning the last item on the agenda tonight, concerning the auto wholesalers on Laconia Road.
Yep.
And it's just to say that they represent the auto wholesalers.
Right. That's from last time. That was reckless
Okay.
last time.
Why did you tell me wrong?
Hey, I'm the one who puts it behind the separator there.
And the next is John's, refers to John's request, and it's from Chuck Mitchell, who's chairman of the Tilton Planning Board.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, let me read the whole thing since John is here and since those of you who are here may not have heard about it. Tilton Conservation Commission has reviewed the above referenced expedited dredge and fill application and has the following concerns. There's significant issues that are before the courts which impact this whole project. We feel that these issues need to be resolved by the court before final plans can be made and then later be subjected to review and approval.
That's not for John, that's for Mr. Sellers.
Oh, okay.
That's
sorry.
Mr. Sellers.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I thought we were
That's
gonna get
gonna
something
s-
good here.
Oh,
wow, the hackles were getting up there, weren't they?
Well, I thought you were the only one that we had, so.
That's all
Mr.
right.
Sellers.
Okay, this is Mr. Sellers.
Yeah.
Okay, it says the plan should include the impact directing water on abutting properties.
Right.
The size, location, and condition of all existing culverts need to be confirmed, in addition to those being proposed. The photos included in the application no longer represent current conditions and need to be updated for this application to be meaningful. During a short discussion of this project during our December 19th, items presented by Peter Shire, which is questioned by two abutters, as not being accurate. At this time, we are very uncomfortable being asked to support an expedited permit given all of the above issues. And just thank you for your consideration of this matter. Next to the Wetlands Bureau, that's who that went to. Okay.
think that's the application for Mr. Sellers.
I'm just looking at the next is the agreement between the Lakes Region Planning Commission and the town of Tilton for the highway impact fee methodology and fee schedule.
Yeah, that was, we covered last week too.
Well, no, that's just a signed copy that I,
Oh, okay.
that I
They
submitted, it
signed
was
it.
signed. and
We had
it's-
signed it, but this is,
Right.
this is their return copy that was
Yeah.
signed.
No, that's just a copy of what was signed and I sent to them, they haven't returned
Oh,
their
alright.
signed copy yet. I just put it in for
All right.
people to
That's-
know it's been done.
What did, we got something from the conservation on Mr. Bernard's, right?
Yeah, it's in the, Mr. Bernard's folder now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, that was the whole point of putting him off,
Yeah,
was for him to go and say that.
yeah, no, it was in there, I
Yeah.
put it right in his folder, I figured it's,
I'm just gonna get these back to Gus for now. Got it? Okay. And next on our agenda is Mr. Bernard. It's a continuation of case 1117. And he went to the Conservation Commission on December 19th. And, the minutes are attached, and it says since the work has already been completed, it was decided that the commission would not comment at this time. So, that is basically,
All right. Then, I would like to make a motion to approve Mr. Bernard's, conditional use permit for case, ZBA, I'm sorry, planning board case 11-17, for the dredge and fill and where he's located his crossing.
is there a second?
This is on the, that new layout you had, right?
No, it's just on the culvert. It's
The
all,
culvert.
Just- Oh, okay.
all we're talking about culvert.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
all right.
And Mr. Bernard, I would like to personally apologize for all you've had to go through with this.
Thank you.
It just seems like a comedy of errors which never occurred.
Thank you.
And I would
Already
like to
accepted.
add my apologies as well, John.
Thank you.
I'm gonna miss you.
I'll be back. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not apologizing because I've been with you all the way.
Okay.
I would like to ask, so now when you went to see them, did you discuss both cases?
When I went to see them,
Mm-hmm.
I asked that I was there to discuss the culvert,
Right,
and they said there was no comment, and then Catherine Dawson spoke up, and then her daughter spoke up, and Chuck turned to me and said, does the state have a problem with you? I said, no. Was it done within how the rules were done? I said, yes. He goes, that's it.
Yeah.
And there was nothing else to be said.
right.
And as far as the other is concerned, I would be staying out of the jurisdictional setback.
Okay, yeah,
And so they really had no comment on that, so.
okay.
Who
So-
seconded that motion?
Guilty.
Okay.
The other thing that, as I've been reviewing, and this matter's kind of closed, so I'm moving beyond on to the next matter, which you're gonna see me in
Right.
February on, regarding the parking area. It seems to me with the 10% that's allowed to be used in the setback, the interpretation that has been accepted before and what is being accepted now has changed.
Right,
There really should be some kind of a formal vote that parking isn't allowed in that setback, because it doesn't, if I was to put a shed up there in the 10% area that I could,
Right.
then I could park underneath the shed.
well, depending on, yeah, I guess technically you could come in and, say that you wanted to put up an accessory garage,
Exactly,
as long as it weren't attached to a main building,
exactly.
then we could certainly allow that
Oh,
to happen.
for the,
But I do want
The
you
end
to know,
one.
you're
That's
here,
okay,
I was
sign
going
it.
to report to the board. I did contact the
7:30.
local government center about this very issue.
we're having a public hearing
And
first.
what I
Oh.
proposed to them was, I explained to them what had happened, and then I said, from from my understanding, I asked if the planning board was incorrect in the past for allowing parking up to 10% of the side and rear setbacks. And 2, we're in the process of creating zoning changes for town meeting vote. Should we change the wording on the 10% rule to read accessory structures or accessory use and structures, depending on, to remove this gray area?
Yes.
Now, I can say to you that it's never been an issue in the past, but as you well know, boards change all the time.
I understand.
And from what I gathered from everything that I talked to him on the phone, and then he sent me an email, and basically what he said is, depending on what the board's policy is, and he said, and obviously that policy can change from board to board, but he said if you truly want to clear it up, the board has got to decide on the 10% rule. If you only want to allow accessory buildings, then you don't have to do anything. You can leave the wording just the way it is. If you wish to, as they have in the past, where you would go for parking or a percentage of parking, and of course in the past the board generally, they would allow the 10%, but they wouldn't allow it to be paved. They wanted it left because part of the purpose of the setback area is for the percolation of water and whatnot, and this is why they always made it a porous substance. So if the board wished to continue going forward with it, also encompassing parking, then they should change the wording on the 10% rule to say accessory use or structures. He also said sometimes what you can do is you can list what would be acceptable and what would not, but he said that can be a dangerous game because you might forget some things, or when you mention some things to put on that list, it may turn out that, what's one thing to one person is something totally different to someone else. But if you leave it, if you were to make it now, if we change the wording to say accessory use or structure, that way it would be based on a case-by-case basis that came in here and how the board perceived what they were trying to do, how much open land they had, exactly what they were trying to do, whether they were truly only going to interfere a little bit into the space or whether they were trying to go to the lot line. But it would be on an individual case. And based on the conversation in the email I had with the attorney at Local Government Center, I mean, I would propose to the board, it depends on how they wish to look at it. If they only wanted buildings, then you don't have to change the wording, and that will become the new policy. Anything else would be turned down because it isn't a building. If you want to change it to where parking can at times be considered, as far as a pervious surface, then we should change the wording and ask the voters to change the wording.
And my belief is that's why we have the planning board here. If everything was just black and white,
Right.
we really wouldn't need a board to decide, does this have merit or doesn't it have merit?
Right.
And I would urge them to allow them to be flexible, allow yourselves to be flexible. In some
Right.
cases, it does have good merit, in other cases, it doesn't.
That's correct.
So I know there's a lot of substandard lots that we have around town that are also gonna be used as commercial lots as times go down. And you start taking all these setbacks, and you don't allow them to have that 10% of parking, it really affects them. And and in some cases, they back up against railroads, and there's really no reason why that couldn't be used.
Right.
So I would urge that whoever the powers are that would allow this to move forward, take all that into consideration.
Well, I'm sure as the night goes on, because we're also having a public hearing tonight, that it will come up for a topic of conversation.
Sorry.
I may be quiet down back there. I'm talking here.
Leave me alone. Take one of those. Order.
Who are you anyway?
Yeah. Good to see you guys. That's all I really have. I'm going to run off and vote, and I might end up
Okay.
even coming back here because I think it's going to be kind of interesting to listen to what's going to go on.
Yeah, you're welcome to come back.
And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
There's, the public hearing paperwork is right in front of you, if you'd like to take one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a few few minutes before we
Okay.
public hearing start.
Something else.
I got emails from Chuck, by the way, also saying that, really didn't concern them.
Okay.
They would go with whatever we decided.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really see how it could go any other way,
I didn't
honestly.
either, not what are you wanting to do?
Right, considering the work is already done. Be quite costly to the town, what would you do if you turned down a special permit? You're gonna tell him he's gotta tear it all out?
No, I'm talking about the other portion too, that
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Planning board?
Is that here?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are you here for the public hearing?
They're for Samberton.
Oh, okay.
From Sanderson.
Okay.
Oh, okay. If you're here for the Tilton, the public hearing, there's some sheets there that you might wanna get. I think, Joe, you got one, right?
Yeah, this is,
No, you're fine.
You're fine.
You're fine. Oops, that's not empty. I can go like this, and I go like this. And I go, oh, put your head down.
Catherine blocks me in the budget committee. I'm so glad you can't see me.
Well, I get so tickled at looking at you because they always put you on the shortest chair, and you see these people up here and all of a sudden, just this little head here.
Well, I'm short anyway.
I know, but
Last
that
night
little
when
chair.
we left the water district meeting,
Yeah,
I had to have somebody get out and look for me because I couldn't see.
well, you were in a bad spot because you were in the
The
turn.
back window was so filthy
Yeah, you couldn't see
that I
out.
couldn't see out. But my comment that was made was, well, you're too short, you shouldn't be driving.
Well, I was thinking more it was like, you backed my car into that wall. So,
Well, no, I listened to all the talk radio. That's a sign that I'm elderly, is because I listen to talk radio. But they're always talking about the old people who drive and they call them Q-tips. That's why I dye my hair so they can't call me a Q-tip. Because it's true, if I get any shorter, I said my head would be sitting on my waist. Gravity does exist.
yes, it does, big time. As soon as you hit 55. Oh, I think
I never was
before
very,
that.
I was never very tall, but I used to be able to walk in very high heels. I can't do that anymore. That's the issue.
Right.
I could get one of those baby seats though in the car and put it in there. So
Booster
I
seat,
Mhm.
Jane, booster seat.
Booster seat.
Yeah.
That's not very correct, I can't. Would you agree with that?
you were in,
Commercial or C?
I had a TR3, and I had to have an extension for my foot because I couldn't reach.
I would tell them it's a
And that was when I
part
was
of
young.
the
It's long.
From here, from here on down,
then you can drink like this.
here,
That's what would have been sitting
I don't think that's appropriate.
Jane, I have an aunt that doesn't even come to my shoulder.
I'm not sure, I gotta look at that.
She's just about over a midget and she
My
drives.
grandmother was 4'11".
I mean,
All the other women in the family were very, very tall.
Mm.
these can be worded, the wording can change by the selectmen to make it fit.
Yeah.
What goes into the.
We're just sports
Yeah,
edition, built close to the ground, that's all.
Not that I'm gonna complain, not that I'm.
No,
That's made by my mom.
Oh, okay. This is for a later discussion.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's, okay,
Okay.
and I made that,
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's it.
thinking we'd have it in front of us, you know, we wanna.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Hmm?
Get that The other one would take longer.
There's no sewer.
7 o'clock.
You said,
We
oh,
have
sewage,
about
is
10
that what you're saying?
minutes.
No, no.
Why did I think the other one would take so long?
Would be long, but safe and sound.
Yeah, right, but that's,
Because everything has taken
Anyway,
so
the
long
other day-
before.
I know.
I like the address of those two new places you just bought too. Would you give me that?
Got some of my papers.
I'm just gonna let
some
Chuck
of the
know.
things I've written.
But he
I
bought
just
two
wanted to
additional.
go and talk to some of the candidates.
Mhm.
and tell them
Surprised.
one of the things.
There's a couple of them.
No, you showed them to me
Yeah.
when I was in here, but
Yeah, I can't
just
think.
if you just give me the address.
Yeah, I'll do that, Jane.
The first is a public hearing on a petition warrant article was received by the town from 25 registered voters. It says, are you in favor of also adding hospitals, self-storage facilities, car wash, motor vehicle sales, and rental and sales and installation of vehicle parts and accessories in the resort commercial district? Any comments or discussions on that? I have a copy of the signatures. They are registered voters, they were verified by Cindy Reinhardt.
Are you inviting comments from
And
all?
I'm inviting comments from the public as well
Okay.
as planning board. Yes,
Does the planning board intend to endorse this, either positively or negatively, on the ballot?
We haven't taken a formal vote on this yet.
Okay.
I can only tell you how I'm going to endorse it, but I don't know, because we haven't voted on it as a board, whether or not we're going to recommend it or not. We probably will tonight.
Well, the reason I asked is I just had a general remark about it, having
Okay.
studied it, compared the proposal against the existing ordinance and the chart of permitted uses.
Right.
And it's totally outside the spirit of the ordinance and outside of the parameters of an RC district.
Mhm.
And it would in fact change the, if it were accepted, change the character of that zone totally. And if you look at the comparison between other zones and the chart of permitted uses, you would be, or we would be virtually transforming the RC zone into a commercial zone. Yeah, and partly RG as well, so that's all I had to say.
Well, those are good comments. Those are comments that I would have made
Mhm.
if we were discussing this just with the planning board.
Right.
Because I look at this and I see that they're talking about changes which are really quite significant
Yeah.
in the zoning that you've already got. And I would ask the question, where are the places where this is going to be most effective, and who wants these changes and what have they got in mind?
Right.
And, you know, is it really good for the town or isn't it?
Well, I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Brown, did you look at, I know right now we're on the petition warrant article, but the regular suggested changes to the permitted uses that the planning board was recommending.
We did.
Did you go through those? Did you have any issues with those as well, or?
Only a couple. I had a couple. Do you want to discuss those now or when we get into that?
Well, I just was trying to determine whether the same thoughts that was governing your feelings towards the
Mhm.
petition warrant article, if that also applied to the proposed changes in the RC district by the planning board.
Well, the difference being, Sandy, is that the changes that are proposed by the planning board would require approval by the zoning board of adjustment through a special exception or whatever,
Right,
be in that area. So
right,
they would be processed.
right,
and that sort of mitigates the impact of them a little bit,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Brill, which ones were you referring to that you had questions about planning board approved specifically?
Well, I definitely had a no under public and institutional, that would be Article 6, number 2, public and institutional, A,
Under
B, C,
schools.
and D. And I also had another negative remark here, under restaurants, number 3, would be permitted. I had a no on that also, I didn't agree with that. I'm sorry, I missed one. Offices, under offices, number 3, commercial, number 2B, I indicated no on that because it's not, it transforms it from small scale to large scale.
Oh, for medical or dental or health office,
Yes.
service offices in the RC?
Yes,
And what about in the, oh, wait a minute, not in the RC, in the industrial?
yeah. Public and institutional. Yeah, that was under offices.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And what do you feel about the petition warrant article that would change the face of the RC district?
The character of the RC district? Well, you're moving away from recreational, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you have a permitted use under there now for RV repairs.
Right,
Those are recreational in nature.
right,
But if you're going to get into the garage concept, the hospitals and all that,
well, the garage is already in there, it's a permitted use already.
yeah, garage.
Yeah, the planning board has recommended not to have that as a not permitted, and because it's been controversial, and a lot of people have pointed out that we allow maintenance and repair in RC, but we don't allow auto sales.
You're right. That's why I said a lot of the changes that the planning board, most of the changes the planning board's recommending, I definitely agreed with,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because they do clean up the RC zone some more.
Right.
Yeah.
So on the petition that we received, you're primarily against the sales and installation of,
I think we have enough vehicle sales along Route 3 as it is.
Yeah.
Car washes, those sort of things, they attract more signage, more congestion. And it changes the whole face of the RC district,
Right.
you know, the landscape, everything.
Yeah.
It's all gonna change. To be honest with you, I didn't see anything in that proposal on that petition that seemed to fit in the RC district at all. I'm sorry.
well, I think you could ask the other board members, but part of our, thought process when we were trying to come up with other uses was the complaint that we have had from property owners in the RC district about the fact that the zoning was too restrictive as far as what they could or couldn't do with their land. And some of the things that we came up with, you know, especially the ones that we had special exceptions to where the size and overall
Yeah.
lot density and things could be looked at. We were primarily trying to come up with additional uses
Mm-hmm.
that could be had along Route 3 in that particular district. But I think that most of the people on this board were resistant to allow auto sales, you know, for that very reason. It is a more of a recreational area,
Yeah.
you know, and we have always tried to encourage development in that direction,
Right.
especially with the lakes there and
Yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Plessner, you had a comment, question?
Simple comment relative to the petition wording itself. The way I read this, how is the actual petition supposed to be worded? I don't believe it can include that top sentence.
No,
No.
it's just the bottom.
The question is just gonna be, are you in favor of also adding? Well, then why is the word also in there? Well, I guess what I'm saying is I know the board can, I believe the board, possibly the selectmen, can word things to make them correct, read correct.
Well, we
Okay.
have to accept petition warrant articles the way they're given to us. Now,
Uh,
if we find for some reason that they're not legal,
I'm not getting at legality, I'm just getting at the wording of the article itself.
yeah,
Okay, back when I was a selectman, I seem to recall that the selectmen had the duty, if you will, to make sure that they were worded correctly so that when they went onto the ballot, they weren't confusing. And the way I see that, with that also adding, that would not be normally the way an article would be worded.
Well, the way it's worded on the form is that RV motor sales and repairs are allowed uses in the resort commercial zoning district. Are you in favor of also adding?
right.
That's the way,
But if the whole thing were put on the ballot that way, then it would be easily understood.
I don't believe you can put that top thing on the ballot, the top part of it.
what currently,
In other words, giving people current stuff, that's not the question at hand, really. The question at hand is, are you in favor of adding the number of items in that bottom paragraph?
I think I see what Joe's getting at. That more or less implies that the other stuff has already been improved.
Right, you just,
And-
it's
and-
background.
And,
well, they have been, those have been approved, but I see your point also. So basically what you're saying is that the also should be deleted.
Well, that in the top two
Top
lines.
sentence, are
Well,
you
the
in
top
favor?
two lines, I
Yeah.
don't believe would those be on the, I don't think those would be on it.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe tomorrow we can have Gus call local government center and just read them what it says and ask if they can be altered.
Okay.
You know, for clarity, or if it has to be presented just the way it's written. And if they say it has to be presented as written, then you ask them, if in fact it is a legal, you know, where it could go on the ballot that way.
Because what I'm understanding for you is it's the currently RV sales, that should be deleted, and then the also should be deleted. So it should
Right.
read, are you in favor of adding?
Correct, yes.
Okay. You see that, Gus?
In other words, we're not
Yeah.
taking anything away from the article.
I got
Right.
it,
We're
okay.
just wording it more correctly from the way I was saying.
Right.
I think you're right, absolutely right. So this we would like to delete,
Yeah,
and then the also delete, okay?
okay. Yeah, and I didn't have a question that, are you in favor of also? Just add, okay.
Okay?
Yeah, you can send that, yeah. But I've never seen that on an article before.
Points well taken, thank you. Is everybody in agreement?
Yes, I agree. I think all we have to do is to make sure legally that
That we
we
can do
can
that.
make any alterations.
Are there any other comments from the public?
You just leave it open and move on if you want.
All right, I'm just gonna leave the public session open and we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a joint meeting with the Tilton Planning Board to review.
Oh, no, you gotta, now we're having the first public hearing on the zoning changes now.
I thought we included both of those in it.
One's at 7 and one's at 7:15.
Oh, I see.
At least open it and then we can
All right,
go
we'll
on.
open then the first public hearing for proposed zoning changes. Are there any comments from the public on that?
Already done my bit.
You've already done yours. Okay, we're gonna leave the public meeting open and we'll go on to our next item.
Okay.
and I believe all the parties are here from Sanborn, the planning board. So I'll open the meeting.
We're still waiting for our chairman and vice chairman, but if this is the time on your agenda when you need to do it.
No, no.
No,
We're a
it's
little
not,
early.
we're early.
Oh, you
But
are?
I thought you
Okay.
were all here, so.
No? Thank you very much.
Well, then we'll go back to coffee.
There's my footboard.
Can we get down to, change Article 10.3?
Yeah.
Yep.
Halfway down the page.
There's the footboard.
Having been the building inspector for 13 years, it occurred to me that one of the issues, and it really shouldn't be the building inspector in as much as he's an elected official for one thing, but that generally the fees should be recommended by the planning board. They're the ones dealing directly with planning, and then they would be recommending. Now that could include the building inspector in his discussions with the planning board, but that the planning board itself is the one that should be recommending to the selectmen a change or adjustment of the fees in some form or another, not coming directly from the building inspector to the selectmen. Because I mean, after all, you're the planning board, and fees and everything have to do with planning. So I guess what I'm suggesting there is that the permit fees are set by the Board of Selectmen upon recommendation of the planning board, rather than recommendation of the building inspector.
What does that?
I think there's an additional thing too, Joe, on the last line of that thing that you're talking about, 10.3.
Yes?
The last line says, schedules are located on the,
Yeah,
of
I
each
did.
permit application.
Yeah, I think I
That's
made
a
it.
typo.
Something,
That's a typo.
I know, but it's,
On,
Permit fee
it
is scheduled.
needs to be somewhere.
yeah,
Permit
on
schedule.
each.
It's incomplete the way it is.
It's on each. I had another wording in there and we had to change it. I was gonna have it on the bottom of each,
On the bottom of
application.
each, okay, that's what I'm looking for.
but we can have it located on each permit
Right,
application.
just take out those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll leave it a mystery as to where they're located on the application.
Yeah. Just charge them anything you think you can get away with.
Yep. Removal of,
Anything to make a
of
buck.
each, of
Well, this page
The,
it says
uh,
the bottom.
removal of.
Oh, maybe I did have one.
On the bottom there, it says on the bottom.
Okay, so I had made corrections, but missed it on, well, this probably had gone to the paper. Or maybe we made some changes. But I think we'll put it on each, because we're not sure if it'll always be on the bottom
Right,
of
and
the
you don't know
permit
that,
fee,
yeah, just put on each
Just on each
application.
permit application.
Yep.
That will clear that up.
So this is when all the zoning changes are changed right now.
At
This is the new.
At the town meeting.
Yeah, I know, but this is where we're gonna set it
Also,
up to have it
Sandy,
asked for beyond the ballot from town
Mr.
meeting.
Correct.
Brown suggested that we numbered them wrong. We should have been 3.3 and 3.4 instead of 3.4 and 3.5. The way we have currently in our book now.
Well, I
Are
mean,
these the
certainly,
only issues we can do?
I don't believe that you have to,
These are the-
that you are at liberty to change the numbering if you find a problem with the numbering.
At the meetings.
Nothing to do.
You
No,
know,
these are the numbers we gave for the new ones that we're gonna put in.
No, you did.
3 point,
One which
which one are you talking
In the zoning regulation to add 3.4, he said it should be 3.3 and the other
it
one
is
should be.
3.3.
Oh, mine isn't.
It's, well, you're taking away, oh, I see, so under 10.3, we're,
No,
we're-
not 10.3, up further.
Up above,
there,
Sandy.
where we're adding article for the impact fee,
impact fee, oh, okay,
that should be 3.3 and the other one should be 3.4.
okay.
And I
Well,
can change
just
that.
change the numbers.
Yeah, I'll just change that.
So these already have to be on.
This is the actual public hearing for the changes. That'd be-
Actually, what is the next number in the regulations? I'm wondering if you should get away from 3 and say go to Article 4.
Article 4, I think,
Is
something
it
else.
taken?
Oh, yeah, we're up to Article 15.
Okay, well then,
But,
you know, 3.3 or 3.4,
yeah,
yeah,
3.3 and 3.4.
yeah, so I'll change those.
okay.
If you were early enough, but it should be around December 10th.
Has the board given any thought at all while we're waiting for him to start on how you wanna deal with the issue of the 10% rule on the table of dimensional values?
Is this a proposed change?
Yes, but we would have a separate public hearing on this particular one.
Oh, okay. I was say, because it wasn't on there.
No, it would be a
No, this
separate,
is something that came up tonight.
yeah. I'm just wondering how the other board members feel about it.
How did this come about? I mean,
It came about because of a past practice of the planning board, and the fact that that particular, the way it was worded now was challenged. And, after talking to the local government center, there is some merit to past, you know, track record of what the board has done, but it is a gray area. So in order to remove the gray area, unless that's what the board, if the board wants to leave it accessory buildings, then it's perfectly okay the way it is and should be left that way, but that also means that it's only accessory buildings that would be permitted there, not
and it
anything
means
else.
only in 10% of the area.
Up to 10% of the
And-
side and the rear setbacks.
And so the question in my mind is, why do we limit it at 10%?
We do that because, the board long ago decided that every lot that's out there needs some kind of a setback around the outside edge of and the reason for that setback is to try and preserve the natural area of it, keep some green space, and that also helps with the drainage of the property. If you have an area that is not being cemented over, or,
Yeah,
so that's the purpose of the setbacks.
okay, so my question is, do we really want to allow them
You,
10% of that area to do something?
well, there are times, especially on undersized lots, areas, in the past now, this has been approved, not saying that it would be approved today, but, there was a, business that went in who needed a little bit extra parking, and so they were allowed to go up to 10%, but the parking that they had in the setback area had to remain gravel or pervious surface so that the drainage would still be there. Now, the board has made minor exceptions like that up to 10%. We have had homeowners that have come in who wanted to put a tool shed into their setback area because their lawns were fairly small, and they utilized that by using a little bit of their setback area. Now, overall, as you well know, sheds are temporary structures. They have a shelf life of X number of time, and then usually, and they're not generally buried, they're usually up on blocks or whatever, so.
Okay, so we really don't want a tool shed that has an impervious, a cement floor in.
Well, I don't think you would want that, but most sheds, but even if they put a garage in the setback area, those have been approved in the past with concrete floors
Concrete floors.
for residential use.
Okay.
But it can't be, attached to the building.
I'm wondering, with the emphasis that has been put on impervious surfaces and the protection of the aquifer
Right.
in recent years, do we wanna continue this? Or maybe we wanna take that 10% out of there and say, no, we don't. Because of our concern for the water protection situation, in
Well, why wouldn't that is allowing the natural percolation of the land? I mean,
that's what I'm saying, is do we want to set it up so that we cannot give them an exception to put concrete in the area where, in that 10% area where we want to have it able to percolate naturally?
well, I can see, looking at it that way in some cases, but in a great majority of the cases, it has always been the board's choice not to be so rigid that they couldn't help people out if they really needed help. Our first charge as a planning board member is to help anyone and everyone that comes in here fit into our zoning the best that they can. So by having the 10% rule there are many just talking residential now, not even getting into commercial. There are many residential lots in this town that are undersized, that the setbacks actually, sometimes they have to come in and get variances to the setbacks because they have such tiny lots. Just to put a house on there, they're well into their setbacks. Especially over around the lakes where they made all these little postage size, lots. It would be kind of like you, if you decided you wanted horses again, and you decided...
You mean I can't have horses now?
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying you don't have them. But say you decided you wanted more horses. If you wanted to build like a little shelter area for those horses, and you wanted to put it up against, close to the edge of your property, if we make this rule that rigid, you would not be allowed to do that.
No, but I would, no. But I would never want to do something like that, to put horses in that would have a cement floor.
Well, not, obviously you would not do it with horses, no. I know you don't have cement floors for horses, but if you wanted to park your tractors there, you might prefer to have a concrete floor so that you wouldn't have, in that case,
I understand what you're saying.
the machinery might leak. You might change the oil and spill the oil, but it's not going to go through the concrete and get into the soil underneath. So, I mean, there's various ways of looking at this, and I guess the board has always used it. Sometimes people need that little bit of flexibility.
I don't want to remove the flexibility.
I don't wanna remove, that's what I was gonna say.
I don't want to make changes which would make this board unnecessary. Okay, what I'm saying is, what we're doing, I think, is absolutely necessary.
Well, even if you took this law away, it wouldn't make the board unnecessary.
No, I know that.
Bob, I think this
I know
came
that.
up.
I'm just saying that
The point of
a change like that is a step in that direction, and I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm just talking about possibilities.
Right, I understand that,
And,
and it makes us all
what
think.
I'm really doing is justifying what's there by discussing it to the point that we know that there are some good situations where having it there has been beneficial
Right.
to the town and to individuals in the town, and
But if it makes you feel better, I can also tell you that the planning board at other times has turned people down because they had ample property.
because they have room to do it somewhere.
They had ample
Absolutely.
room, and whatever the provision might have been, there could have been a brook off that end of the, whatever it might be. So it's not, just because it's there doesn't mean that it's always used.
No, I know. Yeah. Okay.
And I believe you got this opinion from them because of Mr. Bernard's
Yes.
question on the piece of property abutting the Grange.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know sometimes when we get into things like this, somehow or another, I'll ask a question for clarification and
Of course.
understanding and so forth, and before we get done, it's a situation where everybody in the room thinks I'm pushing for something specific.
No.
And fighting for it, and I'm not doing that, I'm just trying to.
Well, I understand that, and plus the fact that when you bring these things up, it expands our thought process on it, and we look at other things.
That's what I think, why I do it.
Right,
Okay.
so, I mean, obviously we don't have to continue it now, but think about how you wanna go with this particular thing.
I don't
I
personally.
don't see any reason to
You
increase it.
just
or
wanna leave the
decrease it.
buildings?
It's,
Because it does give us flexibility.
Oh, I know that, but I mean, what I'm talking about is, do you just leave it, are you just going to leave it buildings, or do you want to make it accessories, structures, and uses? Which would encompass anything man-made, which would also include parking lots, or at least edges of
Well,
parking lots.
I wouldn't mind accessory uses, but I don't think we need accessory structures if we already have accessory buildings.
Well, then,
What?
you don't need the word building, if you say structure,
Structure.
structure, the
Yeah.
definition
Yeah,
of
okay.
structure is anything
Yeah.
man-made,
Alright.
which would include buildings.
I don't mind
Yeah.
changing it to those.
So if you
No.
said accessory
Structure makes more
uses
sense.
or
Yes.
structures,
Right.
No, that makes more sense, structure.
Which could include fences.
yes.
I have to say, I'd have a 20-foot setback on a fence, is kind of.
In your case, yes.
I'm always a special exception, Joe, I appreciate that.
But generally speaking, when people come in about fences, that has never been something that was adhered to, other than the fact that we've always advised them to give themselves enough room on the other side of the fence, so that if they need to do maintenance work, they can.
And we have fence viewers, so.
But-
I know.
But in interpretation of the strict thing, you couldn't
Yes,
put a
then
fence.
you couldn't do it.
Right, so,
But the only time we ever enforced that was just strictly with the front setback, because if you bring that fence all the way up to the property line, you limit the visibility
right,
going both directions. We have had issues with that in
Makes
the
sense.
past.
And the other thing, 7:35. My friends from San Bernardino, are you all here?
Are you all here now?
We are all here.
You.
I know about you and your pit bulls.
You have to go to
no, I have a lab that'll make lick you to death, that's about it. Just pulling your leg.
I think he enjoys our meetings too.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
John, I'm sure we'll see you again.
So thank you.
Are you happy now?
Yeah, I think it's good, I think it actually makes it a better regulation,
Yeah.
makes more sense. I like things that make sense.
Oh, we all.
So a little of it.
Together, I'll be taking.
Thank you.
No, we didn't.
Going home.
Sorry,
we kept you up so much.
Good night, sweetie.
That's on film, you know.
It's recorded, yeah.
Huh?
That's recorded.
Yeah.
They think you're talking to John.
No, not John.
There may be 3 people that ever see that, so.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for having us back. The reason why I requested this meeting is actually in response to the letter which I sent to the property owner and business owner, Mr. Moore, requesting a public requesting an application for site plan review with the application being in by December 23rd.
Mhm.
I got a response from Mr. Moore's attorney indicating that that was not feasible. In a subsequent discussion with Mr. Moore's attorney, Mr. Philip Hastings, the discussion shifted to would it be advisable to have a pre-application conceptual discussion with both boards so that the property owner would be able to bring both boards up to date as to where they stand, what are their concerns, what are the options they're considering, discuss any points of contention or that need further explanation, to discuss the process and timeline. So, at the request of Attorney Hastings, Mr. Moore and his attorney are here tonight to engage with both boards on this pre-application conceptual discussion.
Okay.
I don't know how it is with the Tilton Planning Board, but with our board, these discussions are non-binding on either party, either the applicant, property owner, or on the part of the board. So it's an opportunity for open discussion without any commitment on either side.
Same with
So-
our planning board.
Okay. So, my recommendation would be to simply turn it over to Mr. Moore or his attorney to bring us up to date as to where they stand and what are their questions or concerns, what options are they considering, and where do they propose to go from this point forward, and according to what timeline.
It's fine.
Great, Julie. I don't know where you want me, where the best location is.
Here.
I feel like I'm hiding here.
No, you do.
But right in here.
Right in
Right in here? All right. My name is Phil Hastings. I'm an attorney with Cleveland Waters and Bass. I represent Mark Moore. Mark is here behind Mr. Ward. I think that was a great summary of where things stand. I'm somewhat late to the game here. I understand there's been at least one meeting, one joint meeting before the board discussed the issues. I'd also like to introduce Jeff Isabel, who works for Gig Air Auto, and Don Duval, our surveyor. Don's got some plans that we can hand out now.
I've got full size and I've got reduced copies, whichever one, excuse me. I'm gonna put one or two up here and this
That's
board, if you
fine.
want the reduced copies or full size?
You certainly would want at some point, a full-size
Yeah.
copy, so.
Oh yeah, I'll leave them for you, it's just what you want to
That's a
discuss.
good meeting, I think it's
More discussion.
Doug, do we still have a
I have full, I bought about half dozen full size.
thing to hang these
Got
things?
something right here, Mr. Wood.
Oh, I thought, you know, I think, no, it's gone.
Oh, it's gone?
It's that, it's election.
Oh, yeah, what about the one that you have in your office?
Oops. I think what it is handed out. So
Yeah, I think so.
you can go for it, I'll just sit.
Just to recap from that September meeting, what's happened since then is Mr. Moore has gone out and engaged Mr. Duval. They've engaged myself, and we've also consulted with some engineers to look into some of the technical engineering aspects of the site. So, as you can see from this plan, and as you know, it's a somewhat challenging site in terms of size and where it's located. So we've been working through those issues. Don has gone through and looked at some of the site and zoning issues. I've gone through and looked at some of the site and zoning issues as well to come up with some sort of preliminary analysis. What we've discovered through that due diligence process is a couple of things that are particularly relevant. One was we discovered that the primary issue that we're dealing with here is the lot coverage. We need to make sure the property is in compliance primarily with Samberton's lot coverage requirements in the zone. The other issue as far as Tilton is concerned is the display of automobiles in the front area, which I guess from our point of view is the less important issue compared to the lot coverage issues in Sandbridge, but we'll deal with both of those either simultaneously or along parallel tracks. The other issue that's not really a zoning issue that we discovered as part of our due diligence, it both complicates the resolution, but it also helps us in a way, is we discovered that the boundary line between this property and Pirates Cove to the east really hasn't been clear. So what's been used, what the parties have always assumed has been the property line isn't in fact the property line, and Don, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. What we're proposing here on this plan incorporates a lot line adjustment that will make this property slightly larger, so we've adjusted the boundary lines more to what the parties have always thought they are. We don't have a formal agreement yet with the owner of Pirates Cove, but we have had some informal discussions with them. They have a relatively large site there. Their initial indication to us is that they would be cooperative with a lot line adjustment to do that. Why I say it complicates it is it means we have to come back both to these boards for planning board approval for a lot line adjustment, so it adds a little bit of an additional element to the process. On the other hand, however, by adding a little additional land, it gives us more land to play with to meet the lot coverage requirements to the extent we can. Based on that, what our current thinking is that we need to do essentially three things. We need to address the boundary issue, and that we can do through a lot line adjustment agreement. The second thing is we need to address the zoning issues. For Sandbridgeton, that means seeking a variance from the lot coverage requirements for property within the aquifer overlay district. For Tilton, that means seeking a variance for the front section for the display of automobiles. We can't proceed with site plan approval until we've gone through those two steps, because we need to know what we're allowed to do on the site. So the third step, once we've completed the lot line adjustment and the variance applications, is to come back before the boards with a site plan. So what you're seeing is sort of our first step of what the site plan might look like, assuming we're able to get a variance from the Sandbridgeton ZBA to have a 60% lot coverage for this site, and everything else existing as it is, adding the additional acreage from the Pirates Cove property. So that's what we're presenting to you. We're happy to answer any questions. Would love to get your feedback on your initial thoughts, what you see, what we're missing, what we need to do from here.
I was going to say, the one other thing you have to consider, now in Tilton with our setbacks, nothing is permitted in the front setback other than a driveway entrance. So that is going to be an issue as well.
Okay.
And on the side and the rear, you may allow up to 10%, but nothing's permitted in the front setback at all.
Okay.
And the back stuff is all in Sandbridge anyway.
Yes, we only
Little
have
triangle
this
in the
little
front.
triangular piece in the front. That's Tilton, the rest of it's all in Sandbridge.
And Don, do you know what the front setback for Tilton?
No, since there was no structures or anything in Tilton, I didn't show them on the plan, because that smaller lot,
Right, it's a small
the
piece.
front, side, and
but-
rear would just say nothing, so that's one of the
Right.
reasons we're looking at a
This
variance.
is a land cut. This is what we're talking about.
And that is
I'm
the
curious.
RC,
And that's
I'm
30,
curious
30,
what movement.
30 feet.
30 in the front.
Pirates Cove is, that we're asking for, what kind of, what kind of
So I
distance
mean, it would
movement, and
take
does it affect
basically
their
the whole
driveway cut
little
anyhow?
piece
Right.
of Tilton, so.
Right. But, has the DOT also been contacted regarding this?
I have talked to them informally saying that we're coming forward, but we've gotta figure out what we're gonna be allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And once we know that, we'll know how to approach DOT, but I've talked to them informally.
Cause I mean, normally in past site plans, of course, I'm not familiar with Sandmerton, but I know in Tilton, they're very protective about how close things are to the roadway.
I
You know,
understand.
once they've been made aware of it.
Yeah, they know that there is a residential cut and that we would be coming back to upgrade it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're aware of what's going on in that area. And I told them at some point when I'm got my ducks in a row, I'll be back for the formal application. So it's part of our process.
Great. Okay.
I'm kinda curious, what you mentioned, property from Pirates Cove, what kind of distance are you talking along, obviously, this line between your property and Pirates Cove? And does it affect, the curb cuts off the road?
Oh, the curb,
Where's it gonna, where is the additional property line gonna change?
See here, the dashed line, the heavy dash, that's the
This is
existing
the
line.
existing line?
That's
Yeah.
existing, and we just
And you're going
come
to
for
that?
conversations with Pirate Cove. I just arbitrarily picked another, I think it's like another 30 feet. What everyone's been doing out there is they've been utilizing the town line bound as a property corner. And that's, or whomever put that fence along Pirate Cove, instead of going to the property corner, they went to the town line bound, said that's the property corner,
Right.
and built their fences accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And then the property on the auto site paved up to that mistaken line, so we're trying to clean that up.
Mm-hmm.
and at this point, we don't anticipate any major physical changes to what's out there. What it will allow us to do is create probably a better landscape area between the two. It will probably help, allow us to deal with some drainage issues a little bit better by having that additional land.
Mm-hmm. Sandmerton, you wanna say anything from Sandmerton? It's your meeting.
I'll ask the board members if they have any, then I have a couple of questions.
Well, one of my concerns, and I see you're addressing it, you have far exceeded the amount of land that you could have so far as impervious surface. And I don't know whether you'll get that 60% approval from the zoning board to exceed beyond that point, because these people are pretty touchy about their aquifers and that. And with me being chairman of the planning board, I am very concerned that we just get everything into compliance. And I really think that we've had this issue before us with sufficient time, that we need some firm dates in which we can expect something to happen. In other words, if you say you're going to the Belmont zoning board, I'd like to have a firm date when you expect this to happen. If you're going to the Sandmerton zoning board, a firm date, so we know how to plan our schedule, because
Yeah, I'm
we
surprised that-
originally started out that we didn't wanna be fooling around with this for over a year. Now, we're rapidly gonna get to the point that we'll be on this for a year, and it isn't fair to you, and it isn't fair to the board because of that. And you know, you're so far out of compliance on everything. I mean, it isn't a question that these are minor things, or you're way out, like just in the parking in Tilton. And I know that the problem, I think when you were before the Tilton board at one time, and it was in your minutes, that you were told you couldn't park nothing in the front of that piece of land, and you continued to park there to the point that I think at one time there was over 20 vehicles in the front of the building. That's a lot of vehicles. And on the 30% impervious, you have exceeded that way beyond the 30%, and you continued to do it. Now, to me, I'm not trying to be hard-nosed, but it's like it's just flagrantly ignoring the conditions that you had in which to do business. And we told you when we started out that We wanted to help you, but you didn't seem to be able to help yourself. And we're sitting here now still discussing things today that we discussed the very first meeting that we had.
Are you from,
I am Don Bormas, I'm chairman of the planning board in Samberton. Okay, and what I want is for Samberton, I want dates. I wanna know when you're gonna do these things. And then, if you're not gonna get them within them dates, there will be repercussions, and then you know what the repercussions are. So there's no doubt between anybody, this board, our board, or you people, what we expect out of each other. And I don't think this is unreasonable. It is not unreasonable.
do we have people here from the Tilton Planning Board?
Yeah, you?
Oh, you guys.
You're one of them.
I am.
You're
Not
the
the
Tilton
planning board,
Planning
I mean the zoning.
Oh.
No. Have to worry there for a minute.
No, not yet.
We do.
The zoning board members that we had have left. They were here for the public hearing. They didn't realize this.
And they, oh.
Okay, see, and this is what we need. We need dates of when this is gonna happen.
Well,
And that.
yeah,
Okay, if you make a date with the zoning board and the zoning board doesn't comply, that's not your fault. You
Yeah,
know,
well, we appreciate that, we understand it took a little bit longer than I think everybody anticipated in that September meeting to do our due diligence, to hire the surveyor, to get that done. What I'd like to report to you today is, I think we're at the end of that due diligence process. I think we can proceed now to that next step. Bob, do you know what the deadline is for the next CBA meeting in Sanderton?
The first Friday of the month
Is the deadline, or
is
when
the deadline. And the fourth Tuesday of the month is the Samberton ZBA date.
So I think it's eminently reasonable that we would have an application in for the Sanberton ZBA by the February date for the meeting in February.
now, just for your information, I am also on the Samberton zoning board.
Okay.
I am the planning board's rep to the zoning board.
Could I ask you a question? The note number 7, is that, am I reading this correctly, that you have, you currently have in existing conditions 60% impervious coverage?
No, that's what, existing conditions now is probably almost 90%. And this we're preparing an exhibit for the zoning board. So when we go to the
You're
zoning.
saying you have, under existing conditions, nearly 90% impervious coverage.
Correct. And this
Adding
plan
the additional
here is
square
showing
footage.
if we remove the pavement that I've crosshatched, that would bring us into 60%, which the variance they're gonna be seeking.
You would be seeking a 60% impervious lot coverage, whereas we have 10%.
You have
impervious
10 and
coverage.
they've already, prior lot
a
owner
variance.
has 30%.
You've got a variance for 30, and
Right.
you require 10.
Correct.
You're asking for 60.
I guess that's what they will be asking,
And
correct?
right, and based on our preliminary discussions with the engineering consultants, we hope to come in with a drainage plan that shows that the 60% can be done in such a way that there's no detriment to the aquifer protection.
Who is the engineering consultant, may I ask?
It's,
I can't pronounce his last name. Yuri. Basically, Robert Rook will be the engineer. Bob Rook.
yeah, it's Robert Rook.
Thank you. May I sheet this?
If you can make if we can make a copy, that's the only one I have.
I can make a copy.
That's the other one.
Thank
Oh,
you
and
very
this is yours.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you want me to do it?
One of the things, if I may continue, Madam Chairman, one of the things that I asked from Mr. Moore and also to you, Bill, was an existing conditions plan. Do you feel that this is an existing conditions plan? This seems to be
No,
a
I have,
combination of some existing conditions, some of what you propose, plus a boundary line adjustment, plus a site plan,
I
all
have,
rolled into one.
I have a separate existing conditions plan, which I will make, when we get to the planning stage. I think the main discussion tonight was, this is the way we would like to proceed, and we're trying to, if I may, feel you out to see pros and cons if you'd like anything else. But yes, I do have a separate
I think
existing.
it would be helpful to have that existing conditions plan now, sooner than later, so that we know what the violations are, what the extent of the use is.
Sure.
I have it with me. I just thought it would muddy up.
Huh?
You have the copy and tied up, it's something to print.
I don't have as many copies on the
Something
existing.
you will print.
I printed one short little thing.
It's still saying
Give us
something
what
is
you got.
printing.
We're shut.
You can't get out of it.
Can you cancel it?
I only have two of these.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If I might add for the Tilton Planning Board as well, all we ask you to do is to move your cars off of of our area, and you haven't even done that. That's all you had to do, is move the cars off of the area that is in Tilton. And there's been no effort to do that. The cars are still right up on the road almost. I pass there almost every day. So I don't even see that as a good faith effort on your part.
A comment on your letter of December 21, the feasibility of removing both existing buildings.
That was one of the things we considered as we were looking at this, is whether it made sense to tear down one or both of the existing buildings, build a new building. Right now, we'd like to proceed to try to get the variance first, and if the ZBA doesn't go along with that, we'll need to consider further options, but we think that's the most viable approach right now.
So your approach right now is to go with the existing buildings as they are, see if you can get the variance, and then go to site plan review.
Correct. I don't think, I mean, unless you tell me otherwise, I don't believe we can go to a full site plan review until we have the violations addressed through the variance process.
Yeah, I agree with you. The next question that I have is concerning the curb cut. Is that the existing curb cut? The driveway entrance?
Basically, that whole frontage is open. Yes, and I'm proposing a curb cut incorporating part of what's there. The state will only allow you.
So this is proposed?
Right, yes.
Proposed curb cut rather than existing?
Existing. For all intents and purposes, the proposed overlays the existing. The only thing I would be doing different is the state only allows you 50 feet of an opening. If you know the site right now, the whole frontage is open. So part of the curb cut requirement from the state would probably necessitate some type of closing up that whole frontage, whether you're gonna put a barrier, a landscape strip or something, but that would all be addressed. Again, once we get a fairly good feel which way we're going, we will go to the, your Division 3 up here, so.
Did you say you only had a residential curb cut now?
I
You've never
believe
done a
that's,
business curb cut?
I believe, there's a little confusion at Division 3 as to what exactly
From
exists.
what I understand, that there's never been a permit issued for a commercial curb cut, and all you got there is a residential. Now, I don't stand out there and measure, but at times it appears to me that the vehicles are actually within the road right-of-way. Now, that possibly should be more of a Tilton's involvement, seeing their property is part of the road right-of-way. But as I know, I think at one time I counted 24 vehicles in the front of that building of some sort. Some may have been, from customers or what, I don't know. But that's a lot of vehicles in a small area where you're not allowed to have any. And I have read the minutes of the Tilton's minutes when people were informed that you couldn't put any vehicles there. And this upsets me that it's just an out-and-out violation of the ordinance, and knowing that you're not supposed to do it, you've done it anyway. That bothers me, I'm sorry.
It bothers me too. It upsets me.
As I say, you were told that in the last meeting that we had, and I've seen no good faith effort to move those cars. And obviously you have enough pavement on the rest of the lot that you could move those cars. And then you wouldn't be in violation of that part of Tilton.
Madam Chairman, on this subject, I have photos from January 4th, last Wednesday, showing the way vehicles are parked. And looking at the existing conditions map, it appears that they are within the right-of-way. You may keep those photos.
Thank you.
Illegally parked, right?
The grassy area by the state-owned grassy area, how many feet is that from the side of the asphalt? I did a small drawing, so.
I think it was like 12 feet, I'm just shooting from memory, 12 to 15 feet.
12 to 15 feet?
Nick, what are you referring to, the state-owned grassy area?
Well, the right of way, in other words, you have the asphalt stops, and then there's
Shoulder.
shoulder, or grassy, or so, whatever the material is,
Okay.
either grass or shoulder.
Yeah.
And you have cars right up against, almost onto the asphalt area,
Yeah.
which is,
I'd say there's not 5 feet, probably 5 feet at the most, if that.
yeah. So you actually have automobiles on the state highways, right away.
I have not shared these photos with New Hampshire DOT, Division 3, but I have spoken with the person there who handles access onto the state highway. They're aware of, in general, about the problem, and it has been a problem for some time. And they are willing to work with both of our boards in this matter.
Madam Chairman, and I'd like to say something else. With all of our meetings with these people, we have expressed our intentions to work with them in good faith, and it does not seem to be reciprocating. And we need them to reciprocate, or they put us in a different position of how we want to handle this case.
Well,
That's entirely up to them.
I appreciate your opinion, but I do respectfully disagree. The first my client heard of this was was a meeting, my understanding, this was before I was involved, a meeting was called, they were given absolutely no notice of the meeting whatsoever. That was in September. They came to that meeting anyways, they participated, they understood that they needed to do something. Being lay people, they didn't know exactly what they needed to do to comply. This is something that's been a situation that to a large extent they inherited from the prior owner. I'm not trying to excuse the ignorance of what the law is, but this is a more complex in a situation where my clients just did something with a willful disregard. They inherited this situation. They were apprised of this almost accidentally in September. Since that time, they've tried to educate themselves about what the problems are, and that consisted of a fair amount of expense to them, and it will be a great expense to them going forward, of hiring Mr. Duval, hiring the engineers, hiring myself. These things take time to understand exactly what the facts are on the ground, and I think that in good measure explains why nothing has been done to the front of the site right now. Is we weren't exactly clear where the highway right-of-way is, where the boundaries are. During that process, as I pointed out, we discovered that the boundaries weren't where the parties thought they were.
They did know where the vehicles were, which were supposed to be removed, and they had the capability of removing them, and they decided not to.
I don't want to debate the legalities, but it's worth pointing out here that this planning board has no enforcement authority over the zoning ordinance. And my clients have not been served with any formal cease and desist order or any other legally enforceable document requiring them to take any action on the site. And we're trying to avoid precisely that situation from happening by coming here tonight in good faith to present with you what we've discovered, what steps we've taken, and what steps we intend to take. I'm hearing a lot of hostility, and maybe some of it's deserved and some of it isn't, but I'm telling you that since I have been involved in this project in, late November, mid-November, we have been working diligently to come up with a plan that we think makes sense. We can't answer all those questions today because we don't know how the Sanbornton ZBA is going to react to our request for 60% lot coverage. If the Sanbornton ZBA comes back and says, no, we're not going to grant you a variance, we don't believe you meet the requirements for granting a variance, then we need to go down a wholly different set of options for the site plan. And that could mean removing that front building, which would completely remove any problem with the town of Tilton. That building sits right there, apparently on the town line, so it creates some planning difficulties from operating the site. What my clients heard in September, and I read the minutes, is you folks had no intent to try to shut this business down, that you wanted to work with my client to make this happen. We're trying to work with you to make this site as compliant as possible, but we need to hear from the Sanbornton ZBA. That's sort of, in my mind, the linchpin of everything we can do here is what the Sanbornton ZBA says. You know, we want to act in good faith. I don't think it's a fair characterization to say that my clients have dragged their feet on this in any way.
I guess the only thing I would add, Mr. Phillips, is it has always been the position of this board, and it seems to be certainly the same position that Sanbornton has, is we don't start out with pulling out the guns and threatening. We do try and work with people with whatever their issues are. We're not henchmen up here trying to dictate what will and won't happen. And if there's something that we can do to help alleviate the problem, help them understand, work with them to try and come to a resolution, we will do that. But I think what you're hearing tonight also is many, many months of not knowing what's going on and also the frustration of the whole situation. And, I mean, I for one feel very strongly that certainly Tilton has a very little tiny piece in this whole puzzle. But it is a significant piece because of what is going on in that piece. We're constantly getting people in here, well, they can do it, why can't I? Kind of an attitude. And, you know, I know for a fact, I have talked to the people in the past when I worked here, and they were told by both myself and the building inspector that auto sales was not a permitted use, that as long as they kept it back off our line, you know, Tilton didn't have an issue with them. But it has since changed, so it's not that we don't want to work with them, we do, and we understand that they inherited part of this problem from the previous owner. But it would be, I think, in everybody's best interest, including the new owners, if a resolution can be made and then this is made part of the record. That way they can go forward and they would no longer have the boards after them because they're not in compliance. So I do understand your situation. I know the previous tenant that had that place and the issues that came up with them. So they had issues when they bought the place, whether they realized it or not, but it still comes down to you check for yourself before you do things, so. But we're not trying to be cruel.
No, I appreciate that, and I think most of the people on this board are new since the last time I was here, but my experience in Tilton has always been a very accommodating place, and willing to be fair and to work with applicants, and we do apologize that this seems to have taken longer than you folks expected it to take to be where we are, but we are where we are. We now do have what I think is a plan for moving forward, and we will make every effort to get an application to the Sanborn ZBA by February. At the same time, we will probably be submitting an application to the Tilton ZBA for a variance to permit auto sales in this, given the unique nature of this property.
And, excuse me, do you know what your deadline is for your zoning board?
We don't have a yet here that we do that. But I must also tell you that we're in the process right now of having public hearings on our zoning changes. And
We were curious, and we heard that discussion earlier, that depending on what happens in March, the issue may be to some extent moot in Tilton.
Right.
How did the board feel on the proposed zoning amendment to
Well,
allow?
the petition warrant article?
Right.
Well, obviously, we have not yet voted. We
Okay,
will
you haven't.
towards the end of this evening on whether or not we're going to support this petition warrant article.
Because I think, if I may, I think if we go to the zoning board in Tilton, where you say there's a whole slew of cars, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, we may just go to there and say, can we be allowed to put a finite number, a distinctive number that everybody can, I think that's where we're heading.
Is that the only display area? Is that why you had them there?
Right, that's the only.
It's a very important display area.
See, if there's no vehicles allowed on that strip, there's really no place to display a vehicle other than the driveway entrance that we would be proposing. So rather than have, take your number 20 or 10 cars out there, we would probably go to the zoning board and say, can we be allowed to put, and we'll pick a number, 5, 6 cars, work with the attorney and the owners to see what can they live with to accommodate everybody. So just so you know, that's probably where we're gonna head with it.
Well, I'm awful sorry that, you got the impression that we're hostile. I don't believe we're hostile. I believe that all we're asking for you is to turn around and come up with something so that we know where we're going. Now, you see those photos right there? I'm very concerned about safety. Safety to me means a lot. The day before, there was a car parked right out in front of there, was practically on the road.
I think if a car's in there,
Cause I went to the post office, and that's how I happened to pick that up. So I think, and when I go back, I remember when that property was first turned over, took it over for just using the car, just for making a few dollars. So I go back all the way quite a ways. And since then, it's been nothing but more piled on top of it, without anybody doing anything. Maybe we're at fault, maybe the Tilton board is at fault, but I think now's the time for all of us to put our heads together and get something done. And that's what I like to see done.
As I look at this picture here,
Yeah.
it looks to me as if there is at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles that are parked in such a position that no matter what any one of us does, they are in a dangerous position. No matter what Tilton does, what Sam Morton does, or what they do,
Well, whether,
if they keep them
whether he
there,
was,
they are much
whether he
dangerous
was,
to do
whether he
it.
was working on a car or not, you see the mark I got right there?
Mm-hmm.
That's the mark where the car was.
Yeah.
And whether he was working on a car, he parked out there temporarily, I don't know. But when I went by here, that's where that car was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to me, that was not a very good sight. But the person could, sometimes people go swing around or something, and of course, it hit the front of the car with them. But now I think we've reached a point where I think we can all work together. We're not here to put anybody out of business, so get that out of your mind.
Is there an extra copy
We'd
of
like to work with
Would
you
you like to send the photos?
Yeah.
we'll make copies of this.
and hope the Tilton board will also work with us.
I'm gonna
Thank
make
you.
copies for you. Just make sure you don't have to make some copies.
Certainly.
Actually, 3 cars parked parallel to the road in that same space would be a relatively safe situation.
I
But
think,
with the noses sticking out like they are, you're actually into the road area.
well, I think that's part of probably what, when I go to Division 3 for the drive permit, they will stipulate, I'm assuming, now when I did a car sales in Hooksett, and they had the same thing, they had like 200, 300 feet, whatever it was, all open that you can pull at everything. So what they made us do is designate up to 50 feet, and then in this particular one, they allowed us to anchor railroad ties with big rebar through them. So there's definite delineation between the property line and the DOT property, and that the cars couldn't come forward. So I'm assuming Division 3 would probably do something similar, and that'll probably, if we can get a variance from Tilton to, again, to display 2, 4, 5, whatever they come up with, I think with that demarcation, railroad ties or whatever the thing, you won't have the noses sticking into the road. The other thing that complicates this, yes, the nose is probably in, there's also the post office there too. And if somebody's parked in that road trying to make a left into the post office, then everybody else, from the times I've been out there surveying, nobody really likes to slow down, so they zip out to the right,
That's
they
what I was
swing.
talking about.
Yeah, and they swing around. I mean, that's not their fault that the positioning of the post office parking lot entrance, but yes,
And
there
that's
is a,
what could've happened that day.
but I think if we get the DOT's curb cut, I think we can take care of a lot of those concerns or questions.
Well, one of my concerns on that is we have a condition that we know is potentially hazardous, and we allow it to exist. We are liable for whatever happens there. That is our responsibility to make sure, I'm referring to Tilton at this point in time, that everything is proper in the front of that place. Otherwise, if they know that condition exists and an accident happens there, the Tilton Board of Planning Board is liable, or the selectmen, because of a known condition. And right now, everybody knows the condition's there. And basically what they're asking you to do is correct it.
what is your timeline in terms of contacting the various people?
In terms of the boards,
The boards of DOT?
well, I think we'll probably, it sounds like, it looks like your deadline for the Tilton ZBA is almost the same as Sanberton's, the first week in February, a deadline for the February meeting. So I think in terms of timing, we'll probably submit applications for those deadlines to be before both ZBAs by the end of February. I think it probably, hearing the feedback tonight, and just thinking off the top of my head.
During all that time, you wanna leave those cars sticking out in the road like they are now?
Well, I think what I'm hearing today is, you're getting ahead of me a little bit, is I think we need to have a discussion sooner rather than later with DOT to get some sense of what they wanna see happen there, and we'll address those safety concerns. I think certainly by the time we go to the ZBA, the Tilton ZBA, we need to have an idea from DOT what they want to see physically out there, as Don was talking about, what physical separation they want to have and what they would tolerate, because just from a practical standpoint, if we go to the ZBA asking for a variance and DOT has a problem with it, I'm sure the Tilton ZBA is not going to be terribly thrilled.
So in the interim, you're not willing to reduce the amount of vehicles you have on that?
I'll certainly, we've heard that. I'll talk with my clients afterwards and see what's
One of the reasons, if I may,
just a little bit of effort on your part, just to come, a little, you come some way, we come some way, we've all trying to work this out, and if we can move 14 of these cars, off, limit yourself, to show that you've got some interest in coming part way in the interim, while you go before these other boards, so we can reduce some of that hazard, the potential hazard. I think that would be appropriate.
and as far
Yes,
as,
yes.
as far as the DOT permit, the only reason I'm not applying for it now, say we go to Sanborn for their asking 60% coverage, and we get denied, and then we have to go to phase 2 and possibly tear that existing residence down. I may want to shift the driveway, westerly to the other lot line. I don't know.
Yeah, what he's saying, he wants some good faith, compliance.
Yeah, that'll be between you. I'm just a surveyor, but yes, I hear and I think they're talking out the hallway. It makes sense.
I don't blame you.
I don't even see 5 feet, if you look at those pictures, between the car and the road.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to 5 cars and park them, this way.
No barrier there,
double road
level with the
that way.
ground, and the guy can go out in the middle of the road at the rate you go.
I mean, that's not, to be honest, that's not unique with this property. It's all over the state. Really what, as an aside, I did another one at Hooksett where, again, this particular guy had 300 to 400 feet of open area. So he got a permit to put the 50, so I asked the state, I go, well, who comes in and checks to make sure that, he says, we don't have the manpower for that. He says, we don't have the manpower to enforce it. He goes, what would happen if somebody pulled out other than the approved area, got in an accident, and you run to the state and say, hey, you allowed it, and the state would say, no, you're in violation of the curb cut, so you're on your own. But I mean, they have all these open areas. This isn't the only site, I'm sure, in Tilton that has, 100, 200 feet of open area. And there's no, from what I talked, and it's probably even worse now with budget cuts. And I was doing this 5, 6 years ago, and they said you didn't have the personnel to verify it, so.
I was just talking with Jeff and Mark, and we need to go tomorrow and look at where this line is in the cars, but they're pretty confident that they can limit that to 8 or 9 cars within the Tilton stuff to slide things around.
What if they just put these 2 cars that are parked
Yeah, yeah, we
That
just
way, they
need,
just push them back. I mean,
what's deceiving about the photo, is where the actual Tilton line is. Believe me, if you go out to the site, you realize that
Well, I
this is a
understand.
very small site, and the portion
Yeah.
of Tilton is
It's
very
very
small.
small, very
Yes.
It looks
Especially
much
at
bigger
this
on
end.
the plan.
Now this end here, it doesn't look like we have much, maybe 2 feet.
Yeah.
You know, it's very tiny over here. This would be, I mean, this little wedge right here, I realize is all. Yeah.
And I guess
See,
what,
this car
This is
here.
Right.
Sam,
I think
That's
that
not
must have
right.
been just a temporary, it strikes me,
I don't know
you
if
know,
that was there
normally
from a
parked
test
cars
drive or,
down there, yeah.
sometimes customers, they'll park anywhere.
Oh, that, are you talking about the white car?
and we know
Yeah.
that.
I could tell you that on Christmas Day, there was a pickup truck parked there with a plow on it as a display vehicle, and I don't think you had
Oh.
as, you know,
And I guess
I
all
went
we're,
that was the last time I went that way, was Christmas Day, so.
all we're saying is that when we met the first time, and we just happened to meet here because it was convenient, it was central, and we had a large meeting room, is that we told you all you had to do was move the cars and you'd be in compliance with Tilton. And just a few of the cars, because we do have such a little bit of space. And that's what I was saying by saying that,
I
you
mean,
know,
I'd appreciate it if the board would work with me, like you said, to we'll limit the number of cars, but I do, as a business, need some display area out there. That's what
We've
I'm.
been trying to work with
Yeah.
you, but it looks like you're deliberately ignoring us and actually putting us in jeopardy by putting your cars in a position where if they cause an accident, we're liable.
Right, we're not ignoring you, that's
We're
what
we're liable because we're allowing you to put them there.
Like I said, I
And
appreciate
that's-
it,
And
but
that
that's
is
why
not
we're here.
nice. That is not nice at all. We're trying the best we can to make it easier for you.
And
And at
as
the
as
same
we are too,
time,
sir.
you are putting us in jeopardy. And it is just simply not nice.
you wouldn't even have to have heard from us, Tilton I'm talking about,
Mhm.
if you would just move things a few feet. But if you will try to do that, we'll see what that does with the Tilton portion.
Now I may be a little rusty on this, but, I'm, certain that because we're having a public hearing and by the end of this meeting, these things will be adopted to go forward to the ballot, that even if you see the ZBA next month, I don't know that they can necessarily act on this until after election
Until
time.
after. I'll have to look into that, I'm not sure.
That's the way the rule
There are some
was.
special rules with site plan,
Yeah.
Yeah.
changes to site
Yeah.
zoning, if you're applying for a site plan application. I'm not sure
Right.
the same is true with a variance, but it's just been a while since I've looked at that.
Let me just
Because-
mention that you do not have that problem in Salmonton, because we have a May town meeting.
Yeah, we'll definitely go forward with Samberton.
Right.
Anyways, are you aware of any potential zoning changes that would affect this property in Samberton?
Our schedule with the May meeting is that we have not even.
You haven't
begun that
started.
You
process.
haven't even noticed anything,
Okay.
okay.
The only thing that I can see would interfere with your going after a variance is the fact that the question would be on the ballot. And if it were approved by the voters, you certainly would not need a variance.
Right.
So that would be the only thing that I could see, and it would cause it to be in limbo, because I don't know that the zoning board would render a decision on it until after March town meeting.
Mhm.
To see, you know, it may be a superfluous variance if it
Well,
passed.
I mean, we could get the variance and then 30 days later find we didn't even need it anyhow.
Right.
Oh, variance is around forever.
No, I mean,
No,
if you
but
change the
Right.
zoning on it,
Zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
that it's, that the variance we asked for is allowed use, it's moot.
Right. But that's why I'm saying the board may or may not even,
Is there a way that we could get a read from the board ahead of submitting an application as to whether they
well, I
prefer
was
that we
gonna say,
wait or?
we're going to be voting on what we're going to take forward and schedule another public hearing. We will be acting on the petition tonight, which will, of course, let you know whether or not the board is going to
Whether the board
support
supports
the petition.
Well,
That will-
that may give us a little cue, because if you folks are not in support of the petition,
Right.
it makes it a little less
Generally.
likely that it's gonna pass. I don't know what
Right.
your dynamics are, but,
But we just stopped the public, well, the public hearing is still open, but, so
Okay.
we could hear this particular.
we'll follow up after your deliberations.
I was gonna say, if you don't wanna wait around, I'm sure if you call Gus tomorrow, she
She'll
can
let
let
you
you
know.
know how
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
One other thing that I would add is that if this is in fact a proposed site plan, you need to check our, and it may also apply to Tilton, site plan review regulations in terms of what we require on the site plan. I don't see any reference to signage, lighting, walkways, various other things that are required. It's right there in our ordinance. There's a complete itemized list.
Yeah,
And there's a number of things that we would require that are not shown here.
I understand this exhibit was basically for the zoning board. I don't think the zoning board, I don't think they would need to know all the nuts and bolts, you know, where there's a sign, where there's a light. I don't know if the zoning board, because we're gonna be asking the zoning board for one reason, coverage.
I'm just responding to what you're
Oh, no,
labeling.
I appreciate it.
What you're labeling this plan as a site plan,
Yeah,
and the zoning board does not review site plans.
Right, and I-
The
and
zoning
I-
board grants variances
we
for
usually
site
add on
plans.
that zoning exhibit.
Right, and I specifically asked Don for the purpose of this meeting not to spend a lot of time with those additional details, because I know some boards for a conceptual meeting don't like to see that level of
Right.
detail. But we're aware of the regs, and I'm sure Don will be working with you to make sure we've met all the checklists.
I'm just saying, when you come forward with the site plan.
Oh, yeah, then
whatever
we'll go
point,
through your
Check
checklist.
our ordinance, check Tilton's ordinance, and make sure that you have all of the requirements satisfied.
Well, like I say, normally what we do in a case like this is we'll add a line on there that says zoning exhibit. If this is the plan that we're gonna present to the zoning board.
All right.
Nick, did you have anything that you wanted to comment?
When they
No, the only thing I wanna add, I just wanted to add that safety part. That I'm sure you should make darn sure of that, because I didn't appreciate that day what I saw. So I think that's a very important issue.
I think both Sanverton and Tilton have made that loud and clear, that that's a major issue with us. And with hopefully snow soon, it's even more dangerous. Okay? All right, thank you.
Yeah, Nick, did you, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying,
My finger looked full.
with product that should be on
That's
the
my
lot.
Huh?
We're going to want,
I'm
we're gonna
open.
want, display areas where you are going to park cars
Where you
for
put your
display
product, yeah.
purposes, as was mentioned by a couple of the members of the Tilton
Display
board.
purposes.
You're gonna need to delineate where those display areas are and restrict them from morphing out into other areas.
Sure.
Obviously,
I have an
some
exhibit.
type of a barrier in the front at the lot line to prevent further encroachment out into the road day after day. It gets a little closer and a little closer. So there needs to be a barrier there that is not feasible for you to cross with your display area, with your vehicles.
And I think
But I
that'll be
think the
part of
same thing should apply to any of the other areas. Once these boards approve where the display areas are, those need to be something that doesn't change with the simple whim of parking a car and moving it another 2 feet or even another 8 inches closer. That needs to be something that is workable and enforceable by the boards.
And I
We
think
don't
the
want to be
DOT
down
will
there
have
every
something to say
day
about
checking
that.
where all
That's
your
why I
park-
said DOT, excuse me, I think DOT will, part of our permit.
Well,
will
that's
show-
on the front, but a site plan that is approved needs to be enforceable, but not with the zoning inspector, the building inspector from 2 towns having to go down there and do a car check, a parking check literally every day to make sure that you are within the demarcated areas where you said on your site plan. But I think we're gonna be looking for something where we don't have to do that.
I have an exhibit in my office, we didn't do it today because we're not sure where we're going. But I've delineated on my plan, on my AutoCAD, where we would put delineations for parking, that's where we would be using, if that's where they go forward with the zoning in Tilton. Most towns would say, okay, if that's your parking delineation, they may make you stripe them. I don't know if we're gonna get that far or what they would do there, but again, we would have a plan that says, okay, they're gonna allow display of 4, 5, 6, 7, whichever number works out. It'll be delineated on the plan, and if need be, we can find a way to delineate that area on the ground. So I think that'll take care of your concerns, and mostly the display area is gonna be tilted. So I think we can, I think I can readily show on the plan and on the ground where these agreed upon areas are gonna be.
One additional point, we have been talking about parking as though there's only one form of parking on this property. In my view, there's three. There's vehicles for sale, there's vehicles for repair, there's vehicles for customer parking, and there's vehicles for, from what I understand, there are residents who live in this home. So actually, there's 4 different variations on parking. I think it's going to be important for you to distinguish these parking spaces are for resident, these parking spaces are for customers, these parking spaces are for service or whatever is being done. I heard you answer to one of the questions from a member of the Tilton board that, oh, well, that car wasn't ours, maybe it was someone else's. We can't control where our customers park. Maybe they were the ones that were parking with their nose sticking out into the traffic. I can tell you that when we review the plan that you come in with, I'm going to look for you to clearly identify and differentiate between these different types of parking and not be playing a shell game with us of, oh, well, that's not our car for sale, that's some customer. You're gonna have to track down Mr. Jones, because for 15 minutes he was parked there with his nose out into the traffic. I don't think we're gonna be looking for that. We're gonna be looking for something that clearly differentiates and delineates in a manner that's enforceable once the plan is approved. And I really want to stress this, I don't think it should be the expense of either of these 2 towns to have to go down there and check every day where your vehicles are parked to see if they're in compliance with an approved site plan.
Okay, I understand you.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all set.
Are we all set, or?
Great, thank you very much. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
I'd like to thank the Tilton board.
I don't need them back
time,
if you want,
Madam
for
Chairman.
your, how many you need for your records or what you want.
Oh, I think we'd like to.
You probably want at least an existing.
Yeah.
Rick and I wrote all over this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you.
So, yeah, you've got hand scratches on that, so you probably want, yeah, you can keep them all, I don't need them all.
Wanna play tic-tac-toe?
Okay, I don't need them, I've got the originals in a print machine.
Yeah, he has our printer over there.
Yeah.
He's got him, he's in a good frame of mind, but he's not.
All right, I'm gonna close the public meeting now.
Bob, okay, yeah.
I don't
Why don't we?
I'm sorry, I think we're talking
I'm just saying it's
online.
conversating.
No, I think that's, anybody else wants to hear this at this time?
Before you were releasing those
Yeah.
cars,
I have a question.
you had some questions.
Do
Yeah.
we need to put these chain guns
Mine too,
on
this one is, if we don't get that.
I know your
the
car
warrant
shop to warm it up.
That's right.
on the warrant articles? Does this need to be changed?
Okay,
Yep.
These words to be changed?
my phone number's on that plan if you
With
want
the
to
March
call.
election.
Yes, it'll go on the ballot.
That's what I'm saying, so you're gonna do that, okay.
We have to have another public hearing anyway.
Okay.
For,
Are you ready for this?
because according to the ad, it's in the warrant article,
Yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't on the internet.
Bye,
Some
Bob.
people, unless they came in.
Good night, Nick. Good night, Marion.
So, because we're having another, public hearing for that, we can also include this.
It wasn't on the internet, so I printed off the internet.
Nope.
The petition warrant?
No, what?
Yeah, you had everything here.
Yeah. You had this there. Where did that come from?
I don't know where it came from.
Cause I was on, I printed everything out today and I looked all, even Joe looked.
Yeah, I printed this before I came tonight. Well,
And
this
did-
afternoon.
And did you print this?
No, that wasn't on the
No,
internet.
that wasn't on there.
Okay.
It wasn't on the internet, so
Okay,
all
so
I'm
where did you
saying
get
Oh,
the?
okay.
we need to have another public hearing on that because it wasn't where.
Oh,
they
maybe it
said
was.
would
No, it
be.
wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was not.
So
Yeah, I
we
thought I
will-
gave it to Timothy evidently.
We will include the change to the table of dimensional values on the same ad. And we can have that in one public hearing and then that way we'll be done.
Yeah, do we have to, because I've gotta change the article numbers.
Yeah.
Do we have to have another public hearing for that too? The article numbers?
No, I don't think you have to for the article numbers.
Okay,
Those
because that's just
are,
a,
those are not germane to what we're
Yeah.
talking
Okay.
about.
What about the planning board instead of building inspector?
Well, I don't know how you wanna do that. That's the way it used to would have been done, but I don't know that the current building inspector, does he really have anything to do with planning board?
No, this wouldn't matter. It says the permit fees are set by the board of selectmen on recommendation of the planning board.
Right. So I guess,
we
if
could put planning board / building inspector.
well, we could, if you wanna put it planning board, then what would happen is the building inspector would send whatever changes he wanted, it would go into your, correspondence file, and we would deal with it.
We would deal with it.
And if we agreed with them, then we'd recommend that they be sent to the selectmen for approval.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So you wanna change that to the planning board?
Yeah, just leave it to planning board, yeah.
Yeah, do we have to rehear that?
Well, we'll go ahead because we're having a rehearing, we'll include it.
Okay.
You know, that way no one can come back and say we didn't advertise the
Yeah.
changes.
So I guess the only thing left now, but I just wanted to say this is like deja vu with the store.
Well, that's why I brought up the fact, I really didn't appreciate Peter Hastings, slapping our wrists telling us that we weren't playing nice. I think we've been more than nice with
Do
this.
you want me to shut
Huh? Are they back there?
No, shut this off. No.
But anyway, so that's why I said what I said, he was not being fair. If you wanted to get technical, which I thought about bringing up, was the fact that, wait a minute, it was one of our very own planning board members that invited these two to join, and then turned around and recused himself because he had brought them here so that he wouldn't be influenced whatever happened. So, I mean, it just, I don't buy it, it just.
They dragged their feet, I think. That they dragged their feet and dragged their
Could've come
feet
up
and
in
dragged their feet.
September, we had the first meeting.
So, I mean, as far as further discussion, they're not here, so maybe we should, that's it, we won't talk about it
All right.
anymore.
Next thing we have to do is vote on whether we're gonna recommend this.
Yes, we also, we have to close our public hearing, so we
Yeah,
have to
then
make
we
a
did that
motion to
We
do
did.
that.
Oh.
We did.
We
Oh,
made
we
a
have to do a motion? Okay.
Yes,
Second that motion.
Okay,
Close the public hearing.
and this is for the public hearing,
Yes.
or the,
public hearing.
what about the, my mind is a blank, what about the warrant, oh, my mind is too tired. The petition warrant article, that's separate. So
Yeah,
you-
that's what I was saying,
What are you closing the public hearing on? We have two public hearings tonight.
we've had both of those though, didn't we?
Yes, we
Yeah, we
had
did.
both
Yeah,
of our
but
public
both
hearings.
were open, still
Okay,
open.
still-
So
all
both
right.
are open.
All right.
So you're gonna close the public hearing on
You
the
know, make a
petition?
motion to, the public hearing for the petition warrant article.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Close the public hearing, make a motion to close the public hearing for the warrant
I'll
articles.
make that motion.
The proposed zoning changes.
But for the proposed zoning changes, I think we've been
Second.
here, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
All right, now they're closed.
okay.
Now we
Never
can
ask if
talk
anybody's
about where
opposed.
we wanna go from
Never,
here.
never ask if anybody's opposed.
Because all of you said yes. If you wanna say no next time, I'll say, well, tell her it's
Just
no.
checking.
I abstained from the meeting minutes. All right. We need to vote on whether or not we're going to recommend the warrant petition article, petition warrant article.
Right.
Do we have any more discussion on this?
No,
I don't think so.
a lot of the things that they mentioned, I find that are also things that without us even knowing about it, that we had already proposed anyway. You know, like the hospitals or, you know, what I was thinking, not, you know, when we talk hospitals, I mean, when, in the course of our conversation, it wasn't that we were talking about putting up a big Laconia hospital or
A
something.
clinic.
Like a clinic
Right.
for people who get sick or get hurt while they're here on vacation, it would give them someplace to go. But, on this petition, they're talking about hospitals, self-storage facilities, car washes, motor vehicle sales and rental. A couple of those, like hospitals, we've already included in ours. Car washes, that doesn't, in my mind, doesn't seem practical because there's no public water over
Right.
there, everything would have to be by wells.
Yeah,
So-
That's
that's
my,
stuff.
that's my concern about all of these.
Yeah,
The one I'm really against is the vehicle sales though.
yeah.
There's too many of those and it just turns it into a
Well, that's what we
Route
talked about before,
28.
is it's, you know,
Yeah.
you're a mile one way or the other, and there's a, there's a used car
Right.
lot anyway,
Yeah.
so why have, and
So
it
what are
doesn't
you
belong
looking for a
there.
Just
motion on what
self-storage
we,
facilities
as
too.
far as what we
Yeah,
think?
exactly.
You all or you don't.
Well, I would like to make a motion to not support or not recommend the warrant article, the proposed warrant article that we received. Not warrant article.
petition warrant article.
Petition warrant article, thank you.
Yeah.
I can't talk anymore tonight.
Is there a second?
Also,
What does that mean exactly? Does
That means that
We're
we
not
do
gonna
not
recommend
support
it.
this.
We're
We're not rejecting it, what we're saying is that
We're
it'll
not
go on the
supporting it.
ballot,
It'll go on the ballot.
but it'll say not recommended by the planning board.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, now we have to set a date for our next public hearing, when did that have to be?
The next public hearing is gonna be January 24th.
Okay,
Okay, so,
at what
And-
time?
well, I have Judy Tilton on schedule for her site plan for her bakery. What time?
Okay.
At 6:35. What time do you wanna start the public hearing?
Well, why don't we start, we started at 7:00, cause we can always, 6:35, you said?
Yeah, it's like right after we start, 6:30, and then we do our little thing,
Yeah,
6:35.
so if we have her at 6:35, I think it'll take at least 20 minutes to get through hers, don't you
Okay,
think?
so-
And she talks a lot, so it'll be longer, and I
I've
don't
no
care if
idea.
that's on tape.
Well, she has, and we might not even accept her application because when she put it in, she wanted to get on for the January 10th, and she brought it in late, and I had to call and say, you didn't make it. Because because of the
Right.
holiday, I had to get everything in earlier. So, she said, okay, but I need to get my paperwork in for my, the plans. She hasn't brought the plans in. I sent her a letter the other day saying, I need those. I need you to bring those in, showing your snow storage,
Yeah.
where the buildings are, what you're doing.
When does the ad have to go in the paper?
Tomorrow. I have to send it in at least tomorrow.
Okay, so call her in the morning before you send the ad in, and say,
I'll
She-
text
she
her
works
right
at-
now.
She works at school.
I'll
okay,
text her right now.
But I
just tell
sent,
her that we need her plans or we can't, put her on the agenda.
Yeah.
Because, people don't seem to understand, but what happens is once the ad hits the paper, if John Q. Public comes in and says, I wanna see the site plan for this, and you don't have a site plan to show them, then you have inconvenienced them, and you've also, now what happens if
When do
you
you need
can't
them?
come back in?
Tomorrow?
Right.
So, this was always
I would need them
stressful.
by close of business tomorrow, and I'll send the thing on Thursday to the paper.
Okay,
Okay, so that's the best I can do.
yeah.
or what if the Downton offices are closed due to snow?
They never closed this.
Yeah, they did.
They
They
have, a
did
couple
last
times
year.
they have, yeah, that,
I came to work and I was looking for the inches about.
yeah.
Well,
All right.
then you were open.
This is the existing conditions, what they're proposing in the pictures. Why don't we put that right in their assessment file, or
I'm
you?
gonna make a new folder. for
Okay,
them.
make a folder, at least
For
now we have
upcoming, yeah.
something.
Might need a whole file drawer for them. Got one right here.
That one's
That
locked.
looks cool. No.
And she's not just wanting to do a bakery down there. She wants to put the
Yeah,
rest of
She's
the
gonna
office
do
in.
everything all at one time, that's why
Yeah.
she's waited for so long.
Okay.
And that's fine, I mean, you know, she can have multiple things right in her own home, I
But
mean,
she
that's
just
not.
has to show the buildings, do the snow storage, the lighting, the signage, all that
Right,
kind of stuff,
and,
right?
was she required to get anything from the state? As far as, I mean, she sells her products to the
Well,
public.
she's already had all that done.
Yeah, she's.
So she has all that, so I mean, all she's
Yeah, but I
gotta
don't have
do
it, yeah, but I don't have it copies
is
of
just
it.
verify and,
Alright, I sent it. We need your plans by close of business tomorrow to put you on the agenda for the 24th, on the
Right.
planning board agenda.
that's good,
Per the chairman.
Well, she knows it's from the chairman.
yeah. Now, as far as this goes, this property is the one on Clark Road that has the people, that they're now, it was an in-law apartment and now they're renting it out. The best that I can see that the planning board would do would be as if we sent them a letter reminding them that, apartment rentals are not permitted in that particular zone. The only thing that's allowed is family apartments, and, it's our understanding that they're not renting to a family member, and that, therefore, that it's, you know, it's not a permitted use.
Where is that?
This is the one right on the corner.
Now, I have a
Clark.
question.
Yeah.
Is that the one that they've been building for the last 20?
No, that's the one across the
Oh.
street.
If they don't do anything about that, what, can we enforce anything?
Okay.
Can
On
we
this
have them
one?
evicted?
I don't know that we can have them evicted. Part of the problem is, it's like, you know, I'll talk to the fire department about, is more a situation with 911. You know, what's going on there? They, you know, if somebody calls from that address, they're going to, right now, 911 calls, they're going to assume it's the house itself.
To the front door.
Yeah, and they'll go to the front door, but now if there's nobody home or somebody answers, so, well, we didn't call 911, that doesn't mean the people that are in the family apartment didn't.
Right.
You know, so these
Or-
are the kind of issues you run into.
The one right across the street from us?
Yeah, well, not, you have the yellow house beside you, and then across the street is that white house right on the corner with that big, they put in that big metal retaining thing that goes around the corner.
Okay.
That's the house we're talking about. So they're actually on, the corner of Caleb Hill and
Clark.
Colby.
Oh, cool, no, Clark?
Judy responded, the letter Gus sent me said early next week.
Well, yeah, I sent it, on Friday, Thursday, Friday, an early meeting this week. Now.
She sent it last week, so
Yeah,
that means.
That means it's now.
Yes. Early next week is now.
I guess I should have said by the 10th.
Give her a date next time.
I will. Be more specific.
Did you send it Thursday or Friday?
By noon on the,
I think I sent it on Friday.
I have a question. I don't know
Yes.
if this is the right place to say it or anything like that, but just in discussion with this whole auto thing, we talked about the fact that you can't have anything in the front setback.
Right.
But just driving by the Agway building with the farmer's market, they had all these vehicles parked in the front of that.
Yeah.
They've got a fence there though.
No, they had a pickup truck, they had several cars parked between the
You
parking
had
lot and the.
police detail there too that apparently allowed.
No, these were vehicles from Tilton Auto Serve that they were advertising for sale. I mean, isn't that a change of use for that property in a way, and?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It was site planned to be a farmer's market. She came in and.
Well, she
did it.
didn't site plan it.
Well, no,
No.
she came in and talked to the board to see if it was permitted. But they have not site planned to move the auto sales
vehicle
part
sales, though.
across the street.
And I think they just took advantage of the fact that they were
Right.
gonna have people there, so
Well,
they
they put the
vehicles.
sign up auto serve on the,
I see that too, and they didn't get a permit for that
And
either.
that
That
is something
was
I
not-
was gonna bring up.
That was not, I didn't see a
Well,
permit, I looked at that and said,
We asked Alan, he said they did come in and get a permit for that.
well, maybe they did, but I don't remember putting it on
How
there.
about
But my
Tilton, signage?
question would be is, well, isn't that off-premise signage?
Well, they own the building.
That doesn't
Well,
matter.
yeah, but they don't have it down there.
They don't have auto sales on that side of
That's
the
a
road.
good, that's a good question. I'll have to look, I don't remember putting a
I
sign
think
permit application into that text.
Check and let me know, I'll call Dennis,
Mhm.
and, you know,
Well, it was my understanding Dennis was going to come in anyway because he wanted to talk about the feasibility, what he had to do in order to apply for an over tall sign.
Over tall sign.
Yeah.
You already have one.
No, for his other lot.
So I mean, is that a legitimate question to ask? I mean, is that?
Yeah, it's legitimate, yeah.
There are
My
no-
wife, I didn't see it, I had to work on Saturday, but my wife, said traffic was backed up basically.
Oh, it was
from
chaos
this
in
to-
that place, absolutely, on
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be that
Phenomenal
way,
showing,
but
but-
it's a wonderful, wonderful.
I understand it's a
addition.
wonderful thing, but if it's gonna make,
It
if
was,
it could be an emergency issue where an emergency vehicle can't get to the other side of town.
I don't
Because,
think that'll happen. He's paying a police detail.
okay, the police don't direct traffic, if they can't hear a siren, are they just gonna wait for traffic to come up?
He also said that he would shuttle people, so I don't know if he's gonna have some off parking.
I was
They,
going to
they
say.
were parking people up at Lowe's.
yeah, they were parking at
Yes,
Lowe's,
and all the vendors.
Yeah.
And then the
parked at
dirt
Lowe's.
lot next to the Pizza Hut, they were parking there as
Yeah.
well.
and they were parking all the way down the road by MB Tractor too.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe
They
it
have
would
permission
be,
to do that.
I see MB Tractor had one of the
Yeah,
tractors
but
on.
all those
Yeah.
vehicles are gone today.
Yes, I saw them all walking down there, moving them yesterday.
Well, the MB tractor that was parked next to the
Yeah.
doors
Mhm.
was gone, and then the vehicles that AutoServe had on the front lawn were gone.
Yeah, I saw all the guys walking
So
down
it's like
yesterday.
almost, I mean, if we're gonna be consistent about the front setback,
right.
Should we kind of adjourn the meeting if we're just gonna
All right,
discuss?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
A second.
sorry, just turn off all
Meeting
the-
adjourned at, okay.
No, I was gonna say, if
I
it
mean-
would be worth his while, I think,